Tell me about how you and your church are navigating COVID after 3 months of lockdown and starting to ease lockdown. Yeah, how have you navigated it, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, well, probably same as virtually everyone. We took everything except our compassion ministry online, and we had to. We were feeding and clothing vulnerable people before it, and we needed to keep that going. And so we figured, well, I didn't. The team, an amazing team we have there, just they figured out how to do contactless drop off of food and collection of food, and they're just geniuses. And so that kept going. But everything else went online and had to go online really fast, and we had to figure all that out. And and then we just had to figure out what is going on and how do we actually know how people are doing, and how do we know how we are doing, and what does all this mean? And I thought naively going into lockdown that we'd have all this space. But I feel like I've never been busier or more tired, and I just think that's you're just churning through so many unknowns and complexities, and then having to learn new rhythms and all that. I think that's what that's about, and all the tools in your toolbox are gone. You know how you would normally handle a problem or something like that. You'd get people together, wouldn't you? And you do all that. That's all gone, and we've got to figure all that out in Zoom and et cetera, et cetera. And so we've just been um, churning away online and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. We are trusting the formation that's happened up until lockdown, and we're just finding out really interesting things. Like we're finding out who's got robust rhythms with Jesus and who doesn't, and then how can we help people do that? How can we keep people together? Um, and so we've just tried to use a number of different methods and platforms to do that and keep going. And also as we start to emerge from lockdown, how do we actually innovate and not just go back to what we were doing before? Like, what is the Lord asking of us now in this new season? And how do we take what we've learned and move ahead? So that's what we're wrestling with now. And yeah, and some of our people are doing great. They love this. They're coming alive in the whole online space. Others are not doing great at all, and they are, they've been isolating for a long time, and they are desperate, and rightly so, to meet together. So it's an interesting time as we here in Northern Ireland seem to be coming a bit more out of lockdown than other places. So
Yeah, I've got a pastor friend in New Zealand, and of course their situation is very different. They just managed to unlock over a weekend, but even with their lockdown, he was telling me about how he went into it like with great ideas of, like, I think a lot of us did, wow, this is gonna all this time and people can invest, and he realized some people are holding on by a thread. So they had a sort of welcome, we won't have this, and you won't either. They were able to just like flick a switch and start a Sunday, but he worked really hard to reach out to all the people who had sort of dropped off the planet. Like, we love you, we're here for you, don't worry what happened. And I said, it's almost like a Christian amnesty,
yeah.
Like, it's like, we have to do that. Don't worry if you stopped following Jesus, he still loves you, come back.
Come home.
And you and I were joking before we hit record. Well, I say to people when I get to Zoom them and talk to them, I go, survival is greatly underrated. If you're still married and still got the same number of kids, you're doing well.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't you, Andy, you're trying to, God is gracious to us. I noticed the disciples, after Jesus had risen from the dead, I hadn't noticed it till COVID. Some of them have seen him, but they run and hide in a room, and they're just like, they're useless. They're just like, and Jesus appears and doesn't berate them, and he says, peace, don't worry. He's so gracious. And on the other hand, we want to believe that there's breakthrough at this time, don't we? And stuff. So,
the one thing,
man.
I'm telling my leaders, and I'm telling the leaders that I help out here in Ireland, is I don't think people are they're going to remember this time. they're not going to remember what we said. They're not going to remember the content. They're going to remember if we showed up. That's what they're going to remember. So show up and make that phone call, put that sermon on video, reach out, do that Facebook Live, send that email, do that socially distanced walk. They're just going to remember, did you show up and did you do your best? And I just think there's going to be so much grace for leaders, because you're right. We're all not doing great. And what matters is, did we show up and were we faithful? And did we do all we could to just pray for people, reach out to our neighbors, and keep holding out the goodness and the potency of the kingdom of God to people as a viable alternative? And then I also think it doesn't really matter how we were in lockdown. I think it matters how we come up out of lockdown. You know, have we actually listened to the Spirit about what He's saying to us, about what He wants from us after this is over? I think that's going to be really important too. But I would agree, there's a lot of grace. It's just, did you show up? Do your best, and that's all He's looking for.
Brilliant. Brilliant advice. I'll steal that. I like that.